Hi, I'm Mark Laux, Extension Weed Scientist with the Ohio State University. I'm standing in one of our research trials at the ORDC Western Research Station in South Charleston. It's June 18th, 2020. The purpose of the studies at this study and the ones around me are to get a little bit better handle on the interaction between glyphosate and glufosinate in tank mixtures versus sequential applications. So we have a number of soybeans now, the LibertyLink GT27, the Enlist soybean, that you can apply both glyphosate and glufosinate, or Liberty or generics, whatever you want to call it, to. And so when you look at that bean, one of the reasons we're using, or those beans, one of the reasons we're using glufosinate is because we have glyphosate resistance. We have it in giant ragweed, we have it in water hemp, we have it in mare's tail. So that tends to be sort of the driver, I think, for the post application in a lot of cases. And then the second part is, am I going to add a clethodim, like a select grass product to pick up grass, or am I going to add glyphosate to get some additional help on perennials and also or pick up the grass? What's my most cost-effective option, and do I have some drawbacks? Some of your drawbacks, like for example, the standard recommendation from Corteva on Enlist is you need to bump your grass herbicide rate by 30%, 33%, because you have some possibility of antagonism when you're mixing it with the 2,4-D and glyphosate. The glufosinate-glyphosate mix, generally what I've heard from people around the state is, because there's a fair amount of that going out now, is it pretty typically works. There can be some issues with it, less than ideal conditions, barnyard grass control, and I suspect probably yellow foxtail and also crabgrass control would be an issue. And of course those are three weeds that glufosinate's weak on, so you're relying on the glyphosate, and you don't want the glufosinate to mess up the glyphosate. Glyphosate can get a little bit slow and lose some of its activity on those tougher grass weeds. Occasionally, it'll do that every once in a while. So in the mix, this is our second year of doing that, and really my purpose here is just to show you what the study looked like when we applied the post herbicides. We've got 4 to 6 inch weeds. We've got a nice smattering of lamb's quarter, pigweed, grass, giant ragweed, some Pennsylvania smartweed, and some mare's tail, actually, even though it's tilled. So this is actually more diverse weed pressure than you would hopefully find in one of those fields. Typically what you're coming back after in those fields is, foxtail, grasses, giant ragweed, common ragweed, and water hemp. And that's typically, if your pre-emergence herbicide has worked, that's what you're coming back. So this is a more diverse weed population, but we wanted that to get a better handle on the interaction. It gets a little interesting because glufosinate is weak on pigweeds, red root pigweed and lamb's quarter post. Anyway, so we have different rates and different combinations tank mixed and versus the sequential, where sometimes we apply the glyphosate first, sometimes we apply the glufosinate first. Last year we got a little bit of a mixed bag of results. I don't think there was a really clear-cut answer. We did see better activity on some weeds. Giant ragweed was one of them, where we split the applications versus a tank mix, and I would say the study last year kind of showed that it's not a perfect tank mix. There's some interactions going on there that don't necessarily possibly work in the tank mix at times, so we're coming back and doing it again. And then we have another study, we're looking at some different adjuvants and things like that. This is actually 2 days after the first application, and we put the second application on today. And you can see the plot on my right here is glyphosate, because 2 days isn't enough really to see any activity, although you start to see a very little bit of yellowing in the giant ragweed, which is out here glyphosate resistant, although it does respond and then kind of regrows, versus 2 days after the glufosinate on my left here. And you can see we have pretty good activity. It's in the 80s this week, and we generally have good herbicide activity. So this is just an intro into those studies, kind of let you know what's going on and what this looked like when we started. And we'll come back later and do a second part of this to kind of show the results.